Okay, can I have all your attention, please? We'll make it as comfortable as we can. And I probably can, we only have one screen, so we'll do the best we can. But I want, I've heard, did you know rumors go around this club? It's amazing. The best one I heard, by the way, was 2 days ago. It was from a member that I finished negotiations to sell the club for $87 million, and we're all getting a big check. Wrong. But rumors keep going around, and the answer for today's meeting, this is an information meeting. I know a lot of you think we're making a decision today to give you final information. The answer is I apologize, but we're still doing the due diligence. The contracts are still being negotiated, and can't rush the process. We need a few more weeks. However, because we're on the Christmas season, I thought it was important to still put this meeting out today to tell you where you are, give you a lot of information of where we are, but it is not completed yet. So I want to bring your expectations to sit back, relax, listen to what we have to say. Those of us in the Northeast used to shop at this men's store called Sims. And Cy Sims used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer. And truthfully, the board and myself, the board is educating us right now. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening. If I got to send out a letter in between, I just don't think I could have run a meeting. This is the only date we can run a meeting before the end of the year because of all the other stuff happening. But I haven't picked a date yet. There'll be another information meeting. Sorry, I love talking to y'all. There'll be another information meeting the first week of January. That will be decision. That will be, well, I don't know what decision. We'll talk about it. You all have a decision to make. Today the board did make a decision. We have been talking to two people interested in doing this purchase. Now you can't hear me. I'm told I was yelling before. We have been talking to two different parties. Today the board made a decision after listen to presentations from both that we've eliminated one of the parties, and you'll be hearing from Concert Golf today. I know that's the other rumor you've heard about.
Who was the other party?
You wouldn't know the name. Just an individual. Name is Mike Myers, if that helps, okay? Quiet, please, come on. Please, let's keep it under control. But Peter Nanula from Concert Golf is here. I've only been talking to Peter. Oh, there he is. I've only been talking to Peter since August, so this has been a quick press. You have a chair up here. Sit. And so Peter and I have, and believe it or not, Peter myself, and he remembers having been driven around the course like he was today by Paul McGinn roughly 4 years ago. So this has been going on for a while, and he knows our club pretty well. So what we're going to do today, you're going to hear from Sean, who's going to update you where we are as a club and something about our Plan A. And then Peter's going to talk to you about we call Plan B. And then, like we always do, the microphones are set. We'll do a Q&A. But understand, today's information day, not a decision day. And with that, and so I said the plan is first week of January, information meeting. But that also is going to happen. Sean is going to be getting on a schedule next week. And I'm not going to give you the times right now. He's going to email it to you. We're going to hold 5 town hall meetings. Just to be there to answer all questions individually, because there's always questions, and I know that. So Sean and I and your board members will be there to answer questions various times throughout the week. Then then we have the holidays, so let's enjoy them. It's first week of January. We're going to hold another information meeting. At that point, we'll have the ballot prepared. Ballot will go out. We'll have 2 weeks to vote on it. Ballot will come back, and we'll see where we are. That's the plan. So we're getting close. Just be patient, okay? With that, I'd like to introduce the guy who's helped turn our club around right now, Sean Loveland.
Thank you. So I've been here now just under 5 months, and I'm still here, so that's good news, okay? But I do want to report, November numbers came in, and for the first time in many years, we showed a profit of $60,000. So I want to congratulate all the department heads that are here. You guys did a wonderful job, because we couldn't have done it without you and without the members supporting your own club. Thank you. So today we got options to look at, and my job is to share them with you. Major decisions the membership has to make is whether we want to control our own future or sell our future to Concert Golf, which is also a viable option. Go ahead. So the overview, we're going to continue. Option 1 will be continue working with GL Homes and new financing. Option 2 is to sell the club. Option 1, GL Homes new financing. New proposal that is very favorable to the Fountains Country Club. It's to sell the same parcels, A and B, for $15 million. GL will cover the cost of building the lake and all environmental work required. The club does not have to pay any of that. Environmental issues are GL's responsibility. Homes will be outside the Fountains and is not part of the community. New Homes will have its own entrance off of Jog Road. No pool will be required to be built, but we could choose to build one ourselves. Upon signing the contract within 30 days, GL will give us $1 million. Every month thereafter, GL will pay us $110,000 to cover our costs of our monthly mortgage payment. Our monthly capital assessments will go away, reducing your cost by $2,760. $2,760. All upfront monies GL has given us will be deducted from the final payment, and the money left will be spent on capital improvements. If we do accept the GL proposal, we're optimistic that Wells Fargo, our current bank, will continue to work with us. Alternatively, First National Bank has made us a financing offer that we're still negotiating. No need for a separate loan for the lake or environmental work. We'll have the cash on hand and be able to pay principal and interest on current mortgage until the GL funds do become available. Pros and cons of selling or not selling. Pros. Management of the club is taken over and you can enjoy your lifestyle. Dues will go down. No more assessments of any kind. No more debt. Capital improvements will take place. Cons. Once you sell your club, you lose control, supposedly. Time-limited agreement. Can-Am and other arrangements may still be here. Commitment to 36 holes is for 5 years. That's short and brief. All right? That's option 1. That's whether we continue keeping the clubs ourselves, and that's to sell off the parcels to GL Homes. Now we'll go to Concert Golf.
Thank you. All right, we've got to get some slides working for you. My name's Peter Nanula from Concert Golf Partners. Can everybody hear me in the back? Great.
I forgot to mention one other thing. Was it yesterday? The other day at the board meeting, Friday's board meeting, the rules and regulations is going to be modified. That all dues and assessments must be paid by the 15th of the month following the month billing, or the member will be suspended. So it's going to be basically 45 days, no longer this 75 days. So you must pay by the 15th of the following month. And I will be sending out an email with this motion that was passed to change our rules and regulations. Now we can turn it over to Peter.
It works. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for the great turnout. Like I said, my name's Peter Nanula from Concert Golf Partners. And I was going to try to describe for you who we are as a company and what our proposal is for your club.
Could you raise it up a little bit so we can see?
Yeah, let's give that a try. Can we raise it up? Somebody have a matchbook? We're working on it. No, she's got it. There we go. All right. People may fall asleep. We wouldn't want that.
He's going to talk about science.
The high heels have clubs. Clubs over here.
That's perfect.
Bear with us, a little technology. All right, I'll give you a little background on our company while we set up the machine. So, I've been in the golf country club management business for 23 years now. I started with a guy named Arnold Palmer. Raise your hand if you heard of that guy. In 1993, I met Arnie. He had a little company that was in the golf club management business, and I acquired it. And he was my partner for seven years in the 1990s. And we invested in and acquired 30 clubs back then, all over the U.S. Public courses, private clubs, all kinds. And then some investors approached us, wanted to make the company even bigger. And I said, that's enough. I liked it when it was smaller, when I knew the board members and the members myself, and so I left. So we got involved in about 30 clubs like the Fountains back then. Started a new company in 2011, so about 6 years ago. Is it working now? With some of the same team from those Arnold Palmer days. Here we go. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. And I'm in your way. Well, it's going to be hard for all of you sitting over there. It's going to be difficult. I'll try to talk it as best I can.
Just listen.
So the short version is, we've been in the business a long time. We started a new company called Concert Golf Partners in 2011, and we have 17 clubs now. And we focus on upscale private clubs like the Fountains. So, first question is, why are we here? Why are we interested in your club? Those of you who can see, you have a top-notch, two top-notch golf courses. You have a terrific array of amenities, except the pool, and all the things that we look for in a club. It's a nice area. You've got a large, committed group of members here that you've been through a lot, but you've got a large base of members, and you have some of the typical issues that we deal with. So in our line of work, private country clubs, debt is a very typical issue. You guys have the Wells Fargo debt, right? Assessments, members being assessed to pay for things, makes your bill go up and up every year. We see that at a lot of clubs, right? Capital for improvements. The way you're doing that under your option A is fairly typical of member-owned clubs. An assessment, dues increases, borrow from the bank, right? Those kinds of issues. And then membership issues, growing your membership. These are all the common challenges of member-owned clubs. You're not the only one. And so our job is to go around the country, meet clubs like yours, and see if we can help you with those challenges. Next slide. So here's us. like I said, we came from the Arnold Palmer Golf Group that I was the founder of. We have been involved in over 45 clubs now, including the time we spent with Arnie and our current company, Concert Golf Partners. We have 17 clubs now. Our company today, Concert Golf Partners, has 17 upscale private clubs like the Fountains. This is all we do, right? Food and beverage, golf course maintenance, membership, all over the country, this is what we do. We're a boutique owner-operator of private clubs. That's what we do. We are not a management company who your board hires and pays fees to try to help Sean and the team do their job. That's not what we do. I think you did that with Kemper, and there's a group called Troon, and there are over 100 companies that do that. They get paid fees to help you hopefully run your club better. And there are positives of that and there are negatives of that. It's entirely different from what we do. We are, think of us like Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons. We own and operate clubs. We are in the club hospitality business with our own capital. We're not seeking fees from anyone. We invest in clubs and then we operate them, all in one package, right? So this is a more holistic solution, if you will. Importantly, our capital comes from a group of about 80 wealthy families, right? So there's several ways of funding a country club like yours. You can borrow from a bank, and you can see the issues with that. You can do assessments where, you know, some of you are okay writing the checks, others of you are questioning it, and then 20 or 30 people leave because things are getting too expensive, right? Or there's what I decided to do, having been in this business a long time and seen these problems, raise some outside capital from wealthy families who are very patient long-term capital, including myself, who can be there over the long haul. And so when you have economic cycles and recessions, and when the golf industry goes down, we can weather those storms, right? And so we have $150 million from wealthy families, and all they're investing in is owning and operating country clubs over the long haul. And I think that's a good capital structure for clubs like yours that are going to inevitably go through cycles over time. Thanks. So here's a map of our clubs. I wish you all could see it over here. But our clubs go from Florida up to Boston, 17 clubs, and then a little bit over in the Midwest. So the clubs in Florida, you all know Indian Spring down the road. We just got involved there in June. In Orlando, we have a club called Heathrow Country Club. That was our first. And a Tom Fazio designed club right across the street called Legacy Club at Alaqua Lakes. And then if you go all the way up to Jacksonville, Amelia Island, has anybody ever been to the golf club of Amelia Island? Oh, so many of you have. Yeah, so there's a Ritz-Carlton there, and there's a really nice country club right next door. And all of these clubs went through the same process that you're going through. What's the best future for our club? Who has the capital and the management capability to provide a long-term future for the club? Anyway, these are some of our clubs. Next slide. So I was going to give you guys a couple of examples where we've done this exact sort of thing that you're facing before. And I'll just have to try to describe it well for those of you. This February, our 15th or 16th club, there was a formerly all-Jewish club in Philadelphia called Philmont Country Club. Raise your hand if you know Philmont. So a few hands. Built in 1906, so a lot of history. Some families I met there were third and fourth generation members of this club. Bar mitzvahs, weddings, the whole 9 yards, going way back to the 30s and 40s. Great storied old club up in the northern suburbs of Philadelphia, 36 holes. The membership had aged and was shrinking from all the same dynamics that you're used to. Too many clubs, very competitive, hard to keep up with all the improvements, right? And so they had been negotiating with Toll Brothers and another home builder for 4 or 5 years over taking their south golf course Here, put up the next slide. It's a little picture of it. Only the people in the front here are going to be able to see. But they were basically going to take their south golf course and sell that off to Toll Brothers, get some money from that to fix up the clubhouse, do other things to their north course. Same kind of dynamic that my understanding is you've been working on with GL Homes. Previous slide. So they worked on that for years, and there were fits and starts. The board was trying to run a country club, break even every year, not have the dues and assessments get too high, deal with their bank, and at the same time negotiate with multiple home builders and try to negotiate a good deal and pay for lawyers and engineering and environmental and all these things that real estate development is involved with. We called them up and said, why don't we do it all? We'll pay for everything. We'll pay off your bank loans. We'll fund the capital projects that are on your current wish list. We'll lower your dues to a rate that gets rid of the assessments and the things that have made the club get a little bit too costly. And then we'll deal with these home builder people. And it might take us a couple, 3 years, but if we need to spend $1 million and remediate some arsenic in the soil, or if we need to spend a few $100,000 on lawyers, we have the capital and the staying power to cut a good deal, make sure the homes are done tastefully, make sure the amenities of the club get preserved. We're in a better position to do that. So we did that in February. So we paid off all their debt, we reduced their dues. We have already redone their north course this season. Hundreds of trees came down, greens rebuilt, moved the 18th hole, dramatic improvements in their north golf course, and now we're doing a series of renovations out by the pool complex, redoing the driving range and the clubhouse. We're doing all of that now, and we've added well more than 50 new members already this year. We just got there in February. The process of getting the entitlements from the town to build the homes and to get that transaction done with Toll Brothers someday, or one of the other home builders, is moving along much more quickly now. We expect to have that done next year. When the proceeds come back from selling that South Course land that some of you saw on the map, then our contract triggers a next set of obligations to put more money back into the country club, right? So you can see how this works. We have the capital to fix the club now and to do the work with GL Homes and other people on those land parcels. But what you get as members is, instead of you trying to do it yourself, another 2 or 3 years from now, hopefully you'll have money back from that and you can reinvest in your club, pay back your bank. We can do all of it now. And you have a contract with us that says we're obligated to do all those things for you. So that's what we did at Philmont in Philadelphia, and it's almost the identical proposal that we've made to your club. Next slide. So there's the site plan. Next slide. So we've done this at 17 clubs here at Concert Golf that I described. A couple more examples. This is a club in Raleigh, North Carolina called McGregor Downs Country Club. Now this is a very different situation. This is a club that's been around since 1967. This is a club that had very little debt. The club wanted to do a few $1 million in capital projects. The membership was growing every year, 5 consecutive years of net membership growth. So you might say, why are they calling you? Well, the answer is, this is a community with a bunch of IBM consultants, retirees, and they had 26 committees and a very involved board and committee practice. So they're very thorough. They formed a long-range planning committee that built the normal budget. Assessments, dues increases, borrow a little bit more from the bank, and we'll just keep going as a self-funded club. And they formed a separate committee to review partnering options with people like us, which is basically what your board has been doing. Both committees did their work. They did a lot of due diligence. They flew around to all of our clubs, played all the golf courses, called board members, had meals with them. What was it like before Concert Golf, after, all that sort of thing. Anyway, they came back and the committees recommended to the board, and the board chose partnering with us. And so you might ask why? When they interviewed the members afterwards, the members voted 93% in favor of this option, even though this was a club with almost no debt and a growing membership. They were just choosing, how do we want to fund the next several $million of our future? The two principal reasons the members said they voted for this path, even though it was a departure after 50 years of member self-governance, they said, number one, it's their money. They're going to pay for all this, and our dues are still going to be $600 a month. We're not having to pay for it. So that sounds kind of obvious, but that was a big factor. The second factor was, these people really know what they're doing. They're in the club hospitality business, and we're not. And they could tell that after going to all of our clubs and spending several months with us, is that we do private club hospitality for a living. That's all we do. We're not part-time volunteers doing this, right? And so that's why they chose it. Fast forward 3 years, we've been in Raleigh at this club for 3 years now. We now have a membership cap for golf club members, for golf memberships. The club has added over 100 new members. All the capital projects we promised and a bunch more that were not in the contract, we've already funded and completed. The club has been revolutionized, and the members are still paying $600 a month. And so they got a partner by choice to come in and do all the things they wanted to do with a contract that protected them in all the areas that they were concerned about. And if you speak to the board members of that club, one of the most important things they would tell you is they have a very thick culture of traditions and events and an identity. This is a Scottish-themed club. All the streets are named after Scottish towns and famous golf courses. And they said to us several times, the one thing that we don't want to change is our culture, our identity, all of our events. They have a member guest every year called the Tartan, where all the men wear kilts. And they have a bagpiper, and it is a really thick culture there. And the last thing they wanted was to do a partnership with us and to have some corporate thing happen to their club. And we reassured them, call our other clubs. If you called them today, they would tell you the thing we're the happiest about, we were a well-governed club. Nothing has changed in terms of our culture, our identity, our traditions, our member guests. It's all the same. We have a lot more capital. We have a professional team that helps Sean and our staff. And we don't have to deal with all this stuff anymore as members, but the culture did not change. And I think that's what most clubs like yours want. Anyway, next slide. Indian Spring you know about because it's right down the road. We just got there in June. It's a little different club than Fountains, but some of the same issues. They had some debt. They had membership challenges with aging memberships and how to get their membership growing. And they had some land, not like you do, so somebody needed to deal with that. They had a committee that spent several years working on that. Anyway, we've now paid off all their debt. We're in the middle of those capital projects. We've added dozens of new memberships already. And we lowered member dues. And so far, we've only been there for 5 months, but so far if you talk to the board members and the people that I've spoken to there, and they would say, we should have done this 5 years ago. But we have a lot more work to do, let's put it that way. Next slide. So who is our team? So myself, Susan Dunavant is our Chief Operating Officer. She's been with me back since the Arnold Palmer days, so you would see a lot of her here. Aaron Straub is a sommelier and comes from the food and beverage background of hotels and restaurants. Michael Padden, who's standing in the back in a red sweater. Raise your hand, Michael. Michael is a membership guru. So he spent the last 30 years doing nothing but membership programs at private clubs like the Fountains all over the country. We have a team of agronomists, certified agronomists, the kind of people that would work with your superintendent. The point is, this group of people who are experts in all the different areas of private club management would now be working directly with Sean and his team to keep raising the bar, make improvements at your club, instead of Sean being supervised by a board of part-time volunteers who rotate every year the way you probably do it. It's like most boards. You serve for a year or two, you rotate off. Once Jeff starts to know what he's doing, then he moves off the board, right? We'll still be here, right? We just do country club management, right? Next slide. One of the benefits of this kind of partnership at all of our clubs is you all go from being members of Fountains to being members of 17 clubs or 18 clubs. So you will all have the ability to play at all of our other clubs for free, just like you're members at all of those places. You can eat there, fitness there. If you're in Boston, seeing family, or New York, or Philadelphia, those are your clubs too. Boston is a Blue Hill Country Club in Canton, Mass. Mutton Town in New York, out on Long Island, is another one of ours, yes. So, in addition to those 17 clubs, where you're all a free member overnight, we also have spent the money and the time to join a partnership with all the TPC clubs. So if you've ever been to TPC Sawgrass to see the tournament there, all those very nice TPC clubs, you are now part of the network for those clubs, and you pay about somewhere around 40 or 50% off at all of those clubs. So your pro here can get you on at any of our clubs, it's free, and roughly half off at all the TPC clubs. So now instead of one club, you've got 200 clubs. Next slide. This is a map of all the TPC clubs. It's very hard to read, but you'll see it's a big network of a lot of really top-notch golf courses that, for those of you who travel, family, business, it's a nice benefit to be able to play golf at all these other clubs. Next. So what makes us different? I think I described to you a little bit about the difference between what we do and the Kemper Troon groups of the world who you've used before to help you manage the clubs for fees. Those groups don't have any capital. So the big difference here is we're in the business of country club hospitality, but we're not asking you to pay us fees. We're going to bring $15+ million to invest here into your club to fix everything for you, right? Very different business model than the management companies that you met with before. And the last piece there is what people say about us in the golf industry is kind of our most unique trait, and that is this isn't a corporate cookie cutter operation. Each club is really different. We have 5 or 6 clubs that were all Jewish clubs before for 100 years. We have clubs that were owned by real estate developers. They sold all the homes and then they gave the club to the members. We have all different kinds of clubs in different parts of the country, and they all have a unique culture. Scottish club with a Scotch club and a wine club. We have huge card groups and book clubs at other clubs, right? They're all different, and our job is to take what you've got, what's special about Fountains, what you love about it, keep that, and now how can we take it up a notch? Think back to the glory years of the Fountains when you had 50 or 100 more members. You had the pub filled and busy and all kinds of things going on. You had dining options in multiple places because it was busy enough to accommodate all of that, right? That's our job, is to bring that back to the Fountains. So this is a simple summary of what we've proposed, and your board has been through this in a lot of detail and spent a lot of months doing due diligence, negotiating, but this is a rough summary of it. We will immediately pay off your entire Wells Fargo bank loan. We will just wire them the money so that the club is debt-free. And there's a couple reasons we do that. Number one, you're currently paying over $1 million a year to Wells Fargo. That goes away. That's money that could be used by the Fountains to make improvements. You could be doing a lot of these projects that you all want if you had another $1 million a year in cash flow, right? Number two, we are in the process of agreeing on a list of capital improvement projects that I think many of you have discussed. Your irrigation and drainage systems on the golf course have got big issues. I think you all know about this. The pool project that is high on everybody's mind, and a whole list of other projects on the next slide. Immediate projects. We have to, pursuant to our agreement, if you all vote to ratify what the board is recommending, we have to go out and spend the money on irrigation and drainage, golf course equipment, refurbishing some aspects of the clubhouse, the kitchen. There's a lot of immediate projects that are going to cost, $2 or $3 million that we've got to come here and do now. And then there is a phase 2, like I described at the Philadelphia Club. We'll deal with the real estate development and the home builder stuff. And once that transaction occurs, a second batch of capital obligations is triggered. So when that happens, we've now got to do all these other things, which includes the pool and the south course upgrades, tennis courts, a bunch of other things. This is a list of probably $4 or $5 million of capital projects. We've got a minimum estimate here, but it's going to be more than that. And in our agreement with you, we have agreed to tackle all of these projects as part of our contract with you. So we'll be refining this list. You'll be talking to your board members will be talking to me. As we get through the process, we'll refine this. But the point is, you would now be transferring the obligation to build and make all these investments to us. And we have to do them by contract. Back to the prior slide. So pay off all your debt on day one. Commit to all these capital projects that we have to fund and do. You're not paying for them. We're assuming all your leases. You have a working capital shortfall. Now, working capital is a foggy notion to most people. That's accounts payable, paying your bills, accounts receivable, members paying their bills here. You have some sizable shortfalls in your cash balances. We have to top up those accounts so that your vendors will be paid and the club will be in good standing. We think that's going to be probably between $1 million and $1.5 million to get the club's balance sheet in really clean shape. And then, of course, the equity refund obligations that you've had here before in the past, those are extinguished as part of this deal. Right? Our capital is focused on getting rid of the debt, putting capital into the club, putting working capital in, fixing the club for you. It's not focused on old refunds or notions that you might get $50,000 or $100,000 back someday. That's not what this is about. And then the bottom part of this that I'm sure is hard to see from the back or the side is a series of written covenants that when you meet with your board and you have some of these small group meetings that Jeff talked about, this is really what it's all about. What are the written guarantees that we have as members in our contract with you people that really matter to us to preserve the things we care about at our club? If we're going to bring you on as our partner to do all these things, how do we know that for the next 5, 10, 20 years, the Fountains is going to have the kind of lifestyle and the kind of club that we all know and love? This is what we spend all our time doing at all these clubs, from Blue Hill in Boston to Muttontown in New York. This is what it's about. So some of them are, this is just a summary. There's a longer legal document that your board can walk you through later. First of all, the club remains an exclusive private country club. That's all we do for a living, but it's important that you have that in the contract. So your board said, we need at least some minimum guarantee, even if all the members leave, even if the sport of golf goes away, you have to guarantee us that we're going to have an exclusive private club for some number of years. And because the Falls had something like that for at least 12 years, and I think we did the same thing at Indian Spring, we said, at a minimum, for at least 12 years, even if there's no one here, we have to run a private country club. Now, you may ask the question, well, why can't you guarantee that for 100 years? Well, if no one's here at some point, and you were investing $15 million, you'd want to have the ability to figure something else out. But I'm here to tell you, we're in the country club business. We're not home builders. We don't do anything else for a living, so we're only here to have this be a private club forever. This is just a legal minimum, so you all can be assured that the club's going to be here for some, at least minimum period of time. Then your board asked me, well, we just took out our north course. How long are we going to have a certain number of holes for? And we're new to your situation, but we said, we'll keep 36 holes for at least 5 years. Now, it'll probably be forever, but take the extreme example. 200 of you quit, leave, relocate, there's nobody here, and we're barely even using one of the golf courses. I presume that was the very fact pattern that led this whole group to vote for closing down the North Course, even though it was a great golf course. I'm sure it was emotional, but you weren't using it. Someday that could happen here. I doubt it, based on our track record. But when asked, we try to provide assurances in our contract. So we've said at least 5 years, 36 holes. I'm fairly certain it's going to be forever because we have a good track record of growing the membership, filling up the clubs so where they're vibrant, and we're going to need all 36 holes. No assessments ever again. That's in the contract. That usually gets some applause. Dues reduction. So flip down two slides. One more. So your board also said, hey, if we do this, we got to make this more affordable. So assessments are going away. For example, if you are a equity couple golf member at roughly $22,000 a year, that's going down to 16.5 plus a few things, going down to about $17,000 a year. So you're going to get a 20 to 30% discount in what you pay every year to be a member of this club. So 20 or 30% discount in what you pay, no more debt, and millions of dollars of improvements made to your facility, and no assessments ever again. Right? That's basically the punchline. Back up to the prior slide. One more. So, no more assessments, dues reduced. Oh, important. So I showed you the new dues schedule, which you'll all get to study and discuss in more detail. After 2018, what happens to our dues? So we have a provision in all of our agreements with clubs that says we can never increase your dues rates by more than inflation or the average of a few clubs around here. So inflation in the last few years has been about 2%. That means whatever I just showed you on that prior slide, your dues can't go up by more than 2%, or if a few of the local clubs go up by 3 or 4%, it could be that. But my point is, you have a new dues rate that's way lower than you're paying now, and you have a written contractual guarantee that that new rate will never go up by more than a few percent. There'll never be a huge increase in your dues. That makes people feel the certainty of knowing what I'm paying, no special assessments or bills. I talked to you about reciprocal privileges. Here's a big one. We are going to transition the South, the remaining area, to non-mandatory over the next 3 years. Next 3 years. So I know it's been a very important topic of conversation around here, and the litigation you had. When I was here in 2013 and met with some of your board, the litigation process was just starting. So I agreed to keep in touch with your board. Now that most of that got resolved, we're back, we're trying to be a partner. But you still have a segment of your community that is still mandatory. We don't believe that that is really sustainable for the long term. So we have premised our whole partnership with you on the notion that all of the fountains will be non-mandatory. Now, why don't we just do it tomorrow? Because we haven't gotten here yet. We need to grow your membership. We need a little bit of time to make some of these improvements, but you will have a contractual guarantee that it will be non-mandatory by 3 years from today. That's the best we can do. We think that's a big improvement over where you are. Your home values are going to go up, and we think it's a big positive for the club. Right? So that's our promise on mandatory. And then the last bit is people will always say, well, are we losing control of our club? And the answer is, we know how to run clubs. We have plenty of capital. We can do a better job of that. But we still need to have a relationship with you where there is a voice of the membership. You are still the people that we are working for, right? And so we form an advisory board of members at all of these clubs. And instead of wearing all the hats that your current board is currently wearing, finance, operations, we don't need help with finance. We don't need help with operations. We do this for a living. But the last hat that your board wears is, you all elected Jeff and all these other board members sitting up here, and you're counting on them And sometimes you like it and sometimes you don't, but you're counting on them to listen to you and to try to make changes at the club that reflect what all of you want. Well, we still need that. We still need 5 or 10 people that are members, tennis, golf, older, younger, women, men, all the different segments of the club population who we can talk to every month or two and say, how we doing? After we get the pool done, what are the next priorities? You tell us, because we need to know what the members want. Now, Sean has been here 5 months. My guess is a lot of you know him and you have a lot of confidence in him and you feel like you can walk into his office and he knows what you like. That's a pretty good round of applause. He must be new. Just. But we also like to have a more formalized channel for some representative members of the club to speak up to us in a way that says, hey, we got to fix this. You need to do better here. Here's our next capital priority. So we will have a board that has a different function than you have now. We can handle the finance. We can handle the operations with Sean. Next slide. We talked about the capital projects. We talked about the dues, and you'll see all this in more detail as the board starts explaining the details of this transaction to you. Next slide. And then just a few slides on what we do through running clubs, right? At all of our clubs, we start with the activities, the social calendar, the member guest, the card rooms, the wine clubs, everything you're doing that makes Fountains a place that you want to come to. We start with that. We say, great, now let's build on that. And if we have things that we've done at other clubs that have really worked famously and you're not doing them here, first thing we're going to do is talk to Sean and say, hey, do you have a book club or a scotch club or a beer club or whatever? Do you have a different set of activities around July 4th with fireworks that we do? Do you have all these different things? And we'll compare notes. And the goal is to take what you have now and make even more activities and more things for you all to enjoy at your club, right? More member activity. Improve the dining. Some clubs will say, our food's fantastic, just don't change anything or screw it up. Other boards will say, we're doing pretty well at this, but there's some stuff when we go out by the such and such, grill, it's not as good, or the food doesn't come out as fast. Can you work on that? We're going to take what you like in your member surveys and from your board's input and keep that and then try to make it better. And that goes for golf conditions also. I've heard very good things about the golf course conditions and the job your superintendent has done. So all the things that are well thought of, another round of applause, we want to keep that. And then areas where we think we can make improvements, we're going to try to work with your superintendent to raise the bar even higher. You're the members. We want to make it even nicer. Importantly, your staff. Some people will say, what's going to happen to our staff? The answer is, your staff stays. We need your staff. All right? We don't come in here with a whole new staff. Right? We couldn't possibly do that. Sean and his team will be working with my team to try to continue to make improvements at your club, right? And then grow your membership. That's what Michael's job is. We have a whole team of people focused on helping to grow your membership. Next slide. So obvious, why would you want to be debt-free? That one's kind of obvious. That'll get rid of a big burden on the club and lots of payments going to your bank that should be going back into the club. Next slide. These capital projects. Sometimes this is kind of an emotional issue when you've been a member-owned club for 100 years and you've been sitting on the committees that picked out this carpet and redid this room 7 years ago. And then all of a sudden there's a construction crew and architects here and we're starting to do things. Well, how come nobody asked me what I thought about the carpet? The answer is we can't go as fast and do what we need to do by stopping every project and having a series of new committees for all that. So we have a team of architects, contractors, interior designers, and once that list of capital projects is put into the contract by your board, they get input from you, they give that to us, that stuff is on our list. We have to get it done. We're going to just go do it. So you might be a little bit surprised. At a couple of these clubs, people said, that would have taken us 5 to 7 years to get the funding, have the meetings, and do it, and you guys already finished it in a year. Well, that's because we already have the money in the bank. We already have a team of people who does these projects all over the country. So when we say go, we're just going to start doing it. But it's a little disorienting sometimes if you weren't on the committee that was launching that. All of a sudden there's somebody doing work and you weren't there to decide on that. Anyway, next slide. Yeah, this is a member grill at a club in Indianapolis that we redid. This was their biggest priority. It was sort of dysfunctional, and they said, you got to fix it. And on the right is a completely redone member lounge that looks out onto the golf course with a big new wraparound bar, and it's kind of the lifeblood of the club now. And so those are the kind of projects that we turn from being on Exhibit A to our contract into reality at your club. Next slide. So some people in a meeting like this will say, we've been here for 50 years, how can you do better? How can you be confident that things will get better? And the answer is, this is our only business. We're not part-time volunteers. We don't have other jobs. We only go around to country clubs and do food and beverage, golf course maintenance, hosting big events like this, putting capital into the club, building new pools. We have several of those going on right now, right? Dealing with Toll Brothers or GL Homes. We have people who do all of that, right? We've done this 40 times before, so we've made a lot of mistakes. We've had a lot of member complaints, and when you get them, you learn, right? And so hopefully we have some best practices and we have some lessons learned. We don't have any debt. We won't have any debt on your club. And we've got capital. So if we think it's the right thing to do, our general manager calls us and says, we need to add a water slide and some kid features to the pool. And we all think that's good because there's a lot of young families. On Tuesday, Sean is just putting in a water slide at the pool. There's no other meetings. There's no looking for the money. Just go do it. He's in charge. Just go do it. All right? Next slide. So one of the other advantages, how can we succeed here when you guys have had some challenges? A, we've saved over $1 million a year on the payments you're currently making to your bank, right? We went through that. B, purchasing. We will save at least $300,000 a year here at this club buying the same fertilizer off the same truck from the same sales rep. The same stuff. But we have a different rate sheet. Those companies are dealing with us as a 17-club company. They really want our business. We have a totally different rate sheet that even if Sean is doing a great job and working some of his industry contacts, they cannot sell to him for what they can sell to us for. So we'll save a few $100,000 a year just doing that, right? Next slide. And then this is what happens everywhere, membership. At the end of the day, the club is about membership. If you had another 50 or 100 members, Fountains would probably be in pretty good shape. You'd be trying to whittle down your debt. You'd be trying to do the GL Homes deal, but you'd probably be in pretty good shape. At all of our clubs, we face a similar fact pattern like this when we get there, and we tell Michael Padden and his team to get to work. And what he's got in his arsenal that you don't have right now, and this is why it works every time. This is a bar chart of all the clubs we've gotten involved with like yours. They all had some varying levels of slight member growth to flat to slightly down over the last 5 or 10 years. At every one of them, the membership takes off. Now, why is that? That's because Michael can say, our club is now debt-free. So to a new member who's thinking about the Fountains, the club is debt-free. There are no more questions in the neighborhood about the status of Fountains or the financial uncertainties around the club. There are no member assessments at our club ever. Big shock, major difference when people come to join a club. If they think they've signed up for $20,000 a year, and then they get a bunch of extra bills and it's $22,000 or $23,000, some people don't like that. Right? So the ability to say no assessments ever really helps. Having all these new capital projects going on, you all know from ones you've done here before, that creates some excitement. And having a professional team here that's helping Sean to create more vigor in the club. That combination, at each club we've been to, the membership grows. And we're taking the risk of that. Right? We're the ones that have to do that. right? But it works at every club we've been at. We've been at 17 clubs in the last 6 years, and every one of them the membership has grown. Next slide. So in summary, no more debt, no more assessments. Your dues are going down by 20 or 30%, and then there will be an inflation cap on that in the future, right? Your identity and the culture of the club and all your traditions here are going to stay. You're going to have a whole bunch of capital projects that are on the sort of wish list just start getting done, because we're going to start doing them. You're going to see membership growth. We are going to transition to non-mandatory in the South over the next 3 years, right? You're going to have reciprocal privileges at 200 clubs. Your home values are going to go up because of that non-mandatory thing. That's a pretty good array of benefits as a member of the Fountains, right? Next slide. I told you about the advisory board. Next slide. And this is what we've been doing with your board, right? We signed a non-disclosure agreement so that anything your board would share with us would not be discussed anywhere outside of here. We got a bunch of information. We made a proposal. What you see described has been revised through some negotiations. Your board has called our references. Board members like Jeff and all these other clubs that went through this 1, 2, 3 years ago, your board has spoken to them. Is your club similar to ours? What kind of challenges were you having? And checked us out. And your board, I don't think, would have put this forward unless they felt good about what they were hearing on those calls. And now we've got agreements that are in process. They're not quite finished. There's some details to hammer out. And now we're in that phase where you start to learn about this. You learn about us, and you learn about our proposal and how it would affect the club. And then ultimately you have to do a vote, which Jeff has outlined how you'll vote on that in January. Next slide. So now is the part where we do Q&A, and I'm happy to answer questions, and some of these questions might be for Jeff or Sean.
Okay, remember, as is our rule, no speeches. Whoa. Please, even if you're leaving, please don't talk, because we want to be able to hear the questions. Quiet, please. Quiet, please. There'll be cocktails later, and you can talk about it out there if you want to. And I'll take the questions as longer over here. So we'll start with whoever that gentleman is. Please tell your name and where you're from, please. All right, we'll take care of it.
Jeffrey?
Hang on. Whoever, please turn off your cell phones, since they're a distraction. Thank you.
Okay, start over here.
My name is Herbert Shiner. I live in the first high rise. I want to compliment the speaker on an excellent presentation. It was really very good. And I wonder why we didn't go to something like Concept Golf years ago. Well, while you were talking, I had a great deal of empathy for Sarah Palin. The reason for that was, instead of writing on my palm, I had a little piece of paper in my palm. And I wrote, but I won't be able to read it all. Unfortunately, my wife's pen didn't write too well. But I'll do the best I can. I just want to list some questions and then you can answer them. You don't have to answer each one in order. GL was 17 million, I believe. Now it's going to be 15 million with no pool. Now, it would seem to me that GL would not accept not having a pool. So I wonder what's going to happen with that.
I can answer that one right away, so I don't have to write
You want to
questions.
do it one at a time?
The new proposed deal from GL, we haven't signed anything. The new proposed deal from GL is 15 million. But they now are taking over the cost of building the lake, which is about $700,000. And they've also taken away all environmental concerns, which means that there could be extra money involved in cleaning that up. The new contract, because the way they're building the homes, will not be connected to the fountains at all, so that's where the pool requirement went away from GL Homes. But if you saw in Peter's discussion, we are still requesting as one of our capital projects that we think is necessary for the fountains, and he agrees, by the way, is a pool.
And you have no necessity for a loan from the bank to move the lake anymore? Is that
No, we do
correct?
not.
That's great. What do you do with the land? I mean, you mentioned 5 years, but it would seem to me that one of the benefits of buying clubs is the ability to sell the land later on. Now, you mentioned 5 years, but a little skeptical about that.
Well, one at a time, and then we have a long list of people waiting to line up, so maybe you pick your best question. I'll answer that one. We're only putting these minimum requirements in the contract because your board has asked us for some written guarantees. If you go to our website, you'll see we've never sold a club, ever. We're not home builders. All we are is country club people. So we have no intention of doing anything here but running a full-scale country club on all of your property.
And it's nice to hear that you can profit when nothing
I went 6,000.
One per person, I think is more fair. Sir? Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Andy Solomon, Marseille Court. It was a three-parter. You can answer whatever you please do. You showed a dues structure using the word equity. Why is equity terminology listed there? Will your dues be the same for, say, a couple playing golf regardless of where they live, or is there still going to be a distinction? That's part A. Part two, you showed irrigation costs of $1 million plus, including drainage. And the last figure I received 4 years ago for 18-hole irrigation was 1.6 mil to 1.8 mil. And finally, you said private defined, is Can-Am still part of private? Thank you.
Okay, some good questions there. I can give a couple of answers. The irrigation cost fixes could well be up into the 1.6 to 1.8 million range. We don't know. We're asking experts. I just put $1 million plus because we know it's going to be substantial. Not a perfect number. You asked about Can-Am. We do have that at some of our other clubs. Indian Spring has some Canadian golf there. If we're going to sit down with Sean and your team here and evaluate things like Can-Am and other things you're doing, dinner on Tuesday, all of these things. We first have to get to know your club and how it's working. And if we hear consistent problems and member dissatisfaction, those are things we want to fix. If we hear it's a good thing for the club and it generally adds to our cash flow to allow us to invest in the club and it doesn't bother the members too much, we usually would continue it. So we need to get in there and evaluate it. You asked about the dues sheet. Why does it have categories that say equity and all that? This is an old spreadsheet of what your current dues report looks like. And we're saying if you're paying $22,000 now, if you're in that category, you're going to be paying about $17,000. So you're going to get a 20 or 30% discount. What the new names of those categories will be, to be determined. The big picture is save 20 or 30% on your annual bill.
Mine wasn't even up.
I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know the answer to that one. It's a good question. I should know it. We'll get to the bottom of that. Michael Padden in the back in the red is probably the best person to ask about these questions.
Hi, I'm Bob Miller. I'm San Marino Way. Also, full disclosure, my wife's on the board, but she and I really haven't talked about this. She couldn't be here today for a family matter. First off, I want to thank the board, and I'm not doing this because Harriet's on it. I know how much hard work has gone into this, because I see it every day. And whether you approve of this or don't approve of it, Jeff and the rest of the board have worked very hard to come up with some hopefully viable solutions. But I have a question. There were 3 or 4 on your proposed, capital projects. There were 3 or 4 lines: irrigation, golf course improvement, etc. Those were very generic,
Yes.
very undetailed, and I just want to know, in the contract that will hopefully be signed, subject to membership approval, are we going to have a lot more detail in the
Yes.
with respect to capital improvements, with respect to accounts payable, very important issues like that? Pardon?
Yes. The answer is that definitely. We just
Okay.
started with a generic list, and now the board and myself will make it a more specific list. That will be part of the contract.
And that will be, that information will be given to us
Definitely.
before we vote on
That's
it.
why we're gonna hold another meeting the first week of January. Hopefully by then the contract will be done, and we can talk about it.
Okay, thank you all.
Mike Kepler, Reside Court. In the dues structure, what exactly does that cover or include?
The dues he was showing you, that's why originally it was 16.5, and it was all in except for carts. But the figure had omitted bag room charges, locker, holiday fund. It was $600 worth of stuff. So the 16.5 number is really 17.1, not including carts. But Peter has told me that he will come up with another number, including carts, for those who want it, but it'll be higher than that.
And the other question I have, you mentioned the 5-year minimum for the maintenance of 36 holes. And you said chances are it's going to go on forever. Personally, I would like a more positive guarantee that the courses will be here 18 or 36 holes for the length of our contract, as opposed to the 5-year option.
Okay, so this is a key issue. So what we have, I'll go back over what we talked about. We are making a guarantee, even if all of you leave the club, that for at least 12 years, this will be operated as an exclusive private country club. So that is a legal protection for you that says, even if all of you quit and there's no one here, it's got to still be a private club. Now, so that could be 30 years or 100 years. We agreed on 12, right? Second question, how many holes are we going to have for how many years? 27, 18, 36, 54? You have 36 now. And what we've said is, we haven't even been here yet. We don't know how many people play golf. We don't know how much the courses get used. What if 300 of you quit? You may not need 36 holes at some point into the future. Your board said, well, we need some guarantee that we're going to have at least our current 36 holes for some period of time, even if we don't have any members playing on one of the courses. Okay, happy to do it, minimum 5 years. But the point I emphasize to them, and I'll say it to all of you, is the boards that we deal with are asking us for written legal guarantees into the future. So you have something that's written down that you can bank on. It's always just a minimum. We run country clubs for a living. We keep all the holes at all of our clubs. You can call them all. Ask anybody at any of our clubs if we've ever taken out any holes, ever. We've never done that, right? But
Why couldn't you have that in the contract?
because
It says, if we have less than so many.
right, well then now,
you can take
well then now you're in the business, and 400 other people of saying, how many people per 9 holes, and there's a whole mathematical formula. And what we've learned around the country is, we have clubs that play 13,000 rounds of golf on 18 holes. The typical member has 3 to 5 memberships. They're never there. We could have 700 golf members, and you wouldn't notice anything on a Saturday and Sunday morning. We have other clubs where the list of single handicapper golfers who play 200 rounds of golf per year takes up several pages on the GHIN handicap report. You really shouldn't have more than 300, 350 golf members at that club. All right, so you start with those differences between clubs, and I don't know where Fountains is. Then you fast forward 5 or 10 years, and we have a bunch of spouses joining the club and taking up golf. And they play an average of 30 rounds per year. And we have other clubs where younger people join the club and they play an average of 200 rounds of golf per year. So the fabric of the membership and your use of the golf courses just changes over time. So we've made it a practice not to put in writing a fixed number of members, a fixed number of holes per some formula that you thought in 2017 was a good idea. It won't be a good idea in 2026. But the thing you can rest on is, you have some contractual minimums, just to have something in there, and then go call our references at our other clubs and see if we have taken holes out of play or shrunk their golf courses. We have no reason to do that unless there's nobody here 10 years from now.
And they have not. Just so you know, he's mentioned it, and I thank our board for doing this. Ron Hoffman, I put in charge of the project, basically divvied up amongst board members, and we have visited and checked references, and obviously came back with positive reports.
My name is Stanley Strauch, and I'm up Ridge Way. One of the comments you made was mandatory membership. That's not a function of the club, that's a function of the individual courts, and hopefully that can be addressed by the court later on. My other concern, I think you made a wonderful presentation.
He's aware of that, Stanley, that's why we have to, he said he's got to come here first, and that's part of the negotiation.
Okay. I think you made a wonderful presentation, a great salesman, but I'm a little bit concerned that the dues are too high. We are giving up an awful lot. Whatever the value of the land is, if I understand it, and I could be wrong, the GL Home deal still goes through. You get the 15 million, okay, which pays off the money and so forth and so on. And our dues are still $16,000, $17,000. Now, I don't know whether that 16 or 17,000 gets reduced by 30% because we were never at 22,000 because that included assessments to get us up that high. I'm not sure that you sharpened the pencil enough to reduce our dues.
Okay, good question. So oftentimes, I'm glad you brought this up. Oftentimes, the clubs we go to have a member bill that has 3, 5, 7 different line items on it. One of them is dues. What you think of as just dues. And then you've got an assessment, and then you've got a capital charge, and then you've got a debt dues, and you've got all kinds of stuff, but what do you pay every year? You pay $22,000 a year to be here, right? If you're a full equity golf member.
That includes assessments.
Right, right. And so that $22,000 a year that you're spending to be a member here in that category, that will now be $17,000. Call it whatever you want.
But that 17, you take off 22 less $5,000
Correct.
assessments.
Correct. We're getting rid of that.
17, but the 17, if you keep it, there's no dues
Yeah, but
reduction.
Stanley, operating assessments really defer dues. It should have been the dues you should have charged, and that's why you have an operating assessment, because you didn't cover your budget.
I just don't.
I'm sorry, that is reality.
You can sharpen the pencil a little bit because
We've been
as
sharpening.
far as I'm concerned, that dues number is still a little bit nice. That was my exact question.
Quiet, please, give them respect.
And I totally agree with Stanley because I think, how do you come up with $17,000? We have friends at Indian Springs, they're all in for a lot less than $17,000.
Is that the same quality of golf courses that you have? Right, it's not. Most people around here would say, it's a nice club, but it's not Fountains. And so every club is different. There are market prices for these things. We're trying to lop off 20 or 30% off your annual bill to make this attractive and to attract new members into the club. And I'm sure everyone wishes it was 8,000. And if we had said it was 8, I'm sure there would be hands up saying, how about 5,000 for me? We're trying to make this work for everyone in this room and get another 50 or 100 people to join. We think this is about the right place to start, and then we'll figure it out as we go.
And that's definitely 3 years,
Which is 3 years.
the 17,000.
No, that's just the first year, and then CPI limit on
I'm
that.
talking about the mandatory.
Mandatory goes away in 3 years, yes. Correct, yes. Sir?
Ira Harrington, first of all, compliments to the board and all the hard work that you did in your presentation. One of the main reasons that our club is in financial problems is that many of the members just decided to pick up and stop paying their dues. We have lawsuits against a couple of hundred, or not a couple of hundred, but there are 24, but there are over 100 people who stopped paying. Will these lawsuits continue? Will you take over the prosecution of
Yes,
these
we'll
lawsuits?
take care of that, yes.
And
We're very aware of the litigation. Your board has done a good job of sharing all the information for due diligence that we would need to do to study the situation. And I'll just tell you from experience at our other clubs, if somebody doesn't pay their bill, you won't see them around anymore. Right? That's just a much more rigid policy of our club. If they're not paying, they're not going to be here. Right?
Ted Titel,
Please give respect so we can hear his question.
Ted Titel from Valencia. You've worked with numerous real estate developers. How would you work, two-part question, how would you work with GL Homes, and what might be, in your experiences, some of your difficulties, if there's some?
So, yeah, we are in the country club business. So we are country club hospitality people. We are not home builders. But some clubs have a little extra parcel of a few acres. Some clubs like yours have 54 holes and we only need 36. So we get into these situations, and the first thing that we do is we bring expert real estate people in. We have partners who do this with us at Philmont in Philadelphia and elsewhere. These are people who have dealt with GL Homes, Toll Brothers, and all the big builders all over the country. So they have the expertise. Number two, we immediately move the Fountains from being in a somewhat weak negotiating position where you're struggling a little bit for cash, you've got lots of debt, and your board is doing a heck of a job trying to cut a good deal with these people. But you need staying power, you need to have a lot of capital, and you need to drive a hard bargain with these people. And we're in a much better position to do that after we get here. So we'll sit down with them once we have an agreement with all of you, and we will talk to them about their two different proposals as I understand it. The original 17 million one with the pool and all of that, the new 15 million one that has a bunch of other features, and we will basically start the conversation about what's best for the club. And we won't need money today or 6 months from now because we need the cash. We will be trying to do the best thing for the club. So we don't anticipate any real issues. We've asked around enough. You have some valuable property there on your north course that somebody's going to buy it, and we'll execute on that over the next several years.
You don't see any cross interest
Cross interest with whom?
in terms of real estate, in terms of parcel, and so forth, that you would get involved in?
We will just do something like what your board has been trying to do from a better negotiating position. Something very similar. Yeah.
I'm George Siegel from Valencia 3B. I'm impressed with the operational aspects of what you're talking about, but I wonder about motivation. What is it that we are giving up, bottom line, and what is it that you are getting out of it that motivates you to go ahead with such a deal?
Yeah, good question. Well, I'll answer the second part first. Why are we here? What are we doing with this country club? We are in the for-profit hospitality business. Like all the restaurants and hotels you go to and stay at, we're not a tax-exempt, non-profit enterprise. We're in the business to run a hospitality business like a hotel. So we are here for-profit. That's why we're here. What are you giving up? A board member once said, equity in a country club is the right to be assessed. Right? What are you really giving up? Now, you may think, like a lot of members of clubs we go to, I paid $50,000 to join here 20 years ago, and I thought that $50,000 would turn into $100,000 someday. But if you go to a club and they haven't been paying people routinely $50,000 or $100,000 back every year, most of the people know this is not really a financial investment where I hoped to double my money. The reason I paid to join here was the friendships, the recreation, the family, I want this club to be here to support our lifestyles, and I want it to be fabulous, well-run, and not be a hassle that takes us dozens of hours of meetings every year to talk about it. That's what most people want. And so I guess what you're giving up is equity and the right to have all these meetings going through this stuff. But what you're getting is people who know how to do this for you, and we got to make you happy so that you want to stay here and pay your dues.
Thank you.
Bob Lipp from the Asians. I agree with what Stanley had to say earlier about the due structure. I looked at it and I said, with reducing us by $2,000 a year just on the debt that we owe, plus the assessments that we owe, probably comes down to about $6,000 or $7,000, maybe even a little bit more at the end of the year. So the dues really don't change very much if we take away the assessments, they're not going to be there. If we sold the land to GL and paid off all of our debts, we'd be in around the same place. I don't mind giving up the equity. I don't mind having someone else run the club. I play a little bit of golf, occasionally down at a golf course. But you mentioned that there are equity members. Will the same due structure hold true for equity members and premier members? Will there be a distinction?
I can answer. He's still studying that because we've been educating Peter on the difference. And what I think the goal at Indian Springs, you're currently trying to levelize the dues from outside. Am I correct? The outside, inside members. At Indian Springs right now, your goal is to levelize the dues, and that's going to be once he understands us more. That's going to be one of the goals here.
Okay. Will the people who have dropped out of the club and placed us in a terrifically bad situation and a burden, suppose they decide they want to join the club, are they going to be accepted and will they be welcomed as members to the club?
This has been a discussion we've had, and I'll let Peter answer this.
So this happens at every club we go to. Over the past few years, the group that I'm standing in front of has borne the burdens of paying the bills on a shrinking number of you, paying the bigger bills to support the club. And some people left, right? So in one category, you may have some bad faith people who led an effort to stop paying your bills and that sort of thing. I would put that on one end of the spectrum where you're very justified in being angry at those people, right? On the other end of the spectrum would be members that could be friends with some of yours who left the club because they said, yeah, we got a lot of debt. I don't know when we're ever going to have a pool, and there's just too much uncertainty. And so they quit and went somewhere else. You can't necessarily blame that person just for making a decision for their family. So we come into these situations, and we have a whole array of people. The group in front of us who's been bearing the burdens, and some people who left for valid reasons. They got relocated to New York, or they were waiting for better days. And what we try to do is, first step, make a deal for all of you who've borne this rock on your backs for the last umpteen years that is much better in every way. No debt, lower your payment every year by a substantial amount, make the club better, invest in it to where you're really happy. And then these other people call us and say, we'd really like to join Fountains again, right? And if they were bad faith folks who don't fit with the club culture anymore, we're not going to want them here for the same reasons you don't. If somebody had a legitimate reason because their kid moved to Boston and they lived to be there for 3 years and now they're moving back, we could have them under a grace period come back to the club and they could potentially rejoin. We can't ban everyone who's ever been at Fountains in the last 40 years and stop paying and say you are persona non grata. But we'll make a judgment on a case-by-case basis about people that this group and the board advises us, we don't want that sort of person. That's
Also, I'd love to see an all-in dues price. That's
an all-inclusive number. Yeah, we do that. We tried to post an apples-to-apples comparison about how much you'll be saving, but when we hear that you want an all-inclusive number, including carts and everything, we heard the same thing at Indian Spring, and we rolled out an all-inclusive number. we will likely do that here for you as well.
Thank you, good luck.
Good luck.
Ma'am.
I wanted to bring something up with the dues.
Good luck to all of us.
Because we're paying right now a higher number, those of us who have to make our payments this month. Peter's already aware of that too. And basically what's gonna happen is, if this deal closes at the end of January, we'll make 2 payments, December and January. Peter's team will then calculate who's made overpayments, and there'll be credits back. So that won't be a problem. That's in the contract.
All right, Ricky Horton in Oakmont. I have a little bit different question. If we had come to you a couple of years ago,
We did.
before, well, we didn't choose them though, before we
No,
went
he
to,
didn't choose us.
however, okay, before we went to Kemper, before we sold to GL, we would have gone to you with 3 wonderful golf courses. So now we've decided that in our current situation, we didn't need the 3 golf courses, we needed 2. And we sold off a portion of them, but, and I don't know this for sure, but I believe that the land is still intact where we had a North Golf Course. Would you ever consider back to 3 golf courses without selling to GL as you are going to grow us?
I don't think the math works. I'm sorry, I missed your name. I don't think the math works for the same reason it doesn't for you. You've got 15+ million in obligations with your bank, capital improvements you need to make, money to pay bills. You probably need to come up with amongst you $15 million to keep the club afloat. Well, you can get that money from GL, get that money from us, you could pass a hat and do 15 million. One way or another, that probably needs to happen. So I don't foresee a scenario where you're back to 54 holes now. Yeah, sorry about that.
So just the second part of that. Would you consider in your negotiation if there's a certain number of rounds per year, then the club will remain its 36 holes?
We talked about that, he didn't want to add that to the contract at this point.
Yeah, that was mentioned. You're asking good questions that your board asked. Like I said to this other gentleman, we've learned to avoid these sort of rigid formulas because the composition of the membership changes over time. And then what we wrote down on a sheet of paper 5 years ago just isn't very applicable. So I think back to the reference checks. Ask your board members what these other clubs said. Are we the kind of people who are nickel and dimers? Are we always taking holes out of play? Are we going cheap with the food? Ask them. And if you get to the point where you understand that we are above and beyond kind of people who really make the members happy and they're telling their friends how great it is, that's why I think your board member said, you know, we really should do this. We have some written provisions that are great, but at the end of the day, we're picking a firm who's going to have a lot of money of their own invested, and they got to make us happy. Right? We got to make you happy. So it's not in our interest to do some of those things that you're naturally worried about.
Yeah, and when you come to the town hall meetings, if you want to know about some of the reference checks, those board members who visited the clubs will be happy to share them.
Valencia. It's great what you're going to be doing, paying off our debts and lowering the dues and getting rid of the assessments. I have a silly question. How are you making your money? Seriously.
You know, truthfully, obviously it's not our problem directly. He's going to make his money, but because what they historically have done and what we found in our reference checks is they bring in members. You bring in members, you have more revenue, and you have more rounds of golf. The other thing, which we're showing up and they plan on doing, is bring back catering at a profit. And Sean, that's the project Sean's been after for a while. And I think you add those two together, I mean, that's how I see they're going to make money. You have anything to add to that?
Are you thinking
Sean just
of
showed a profit of 60,000, just told me, right?
Are you thinking of selling the land on maybe south or west?
I don't think he knows the property. I'm answering
Or
for him
one
right
of
now.
the courses, doesn't matter which
Yeah,
one.
but I mean, we've talked about this. He might be some more in the north that's available for sale, but he wants to maintain the 36 holes.
For 5 years, okay.
I feel good about that. Okay.
Paul again. Peter, nice to see you again. I have a couple questions, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you look at this deal on the surface, Peter, it's pretty simple. You got 14.5 million you're committing to the club, 10 million of that, 3.5 million in some proposed improvements over a short period of time, let's say 18 months. And on the other side, we have a signed contract with land value of just, 15 million for 65 acres of land. And the equity side, you keep mentioning the equity side, there's no more equity dues, no more equity assessments, which is great, but then there's no more land for us all either. We're selling the club to you, there's no value whatsoever left. You're putting up 14.5 million short term and getting 15 million back.
I think that's why you heard, and we're going to talk more about this next week, Paul. There's still a plan A option if we don't sell, and we have to compare the two.
Well,
but the 3.5 million is a bigger number. He just didn't want to commit to numbers.
No, it's up there. That was 3.5 million. Was the number?
That's in phase 1, but phase 2 he's committed to another 6-7 million.
That's fine. You also have the value of the club. The entire club is valued more than $15 million.
I'm more than
$22 million? $28 million? I mean, no matter what he puts in, it's still the value. The value he's creating here, he's creating the land values. That's how he's making his money. I'm proud of him. He's a good businessman.
And that's why we have to make a decision if we want to do a deal like this, or if we want to continue operating the club, which we have not done a good job of.
Jeff, trust me. You didn't present us what you were tasked to do, and I'm sorry, I have to ask you this. You were tasked to present us with three offers. One for the revised GL deal, a concert golf deal, and an entire sale deal. We want to know the value of our land. We're going to remain an equity member for 3 years. We have to remain members for a private entity that's going to make money. There's no way we're going to pay equity mandatory membership dues for a private company.
We have put it out there to get bids. We have put it out there to get bids on what the club is worth, and nobody's jumping on a door.
You should have started this a long time ago. You know that, over the summer. So you waited too long. You got us into a situation right now.
Excuse me, I'll take offense to that. I started talking to Peter in August.
Jeff, you waited too long over the summer to really get going. Everybody was on vacation. The board was all on vacation.
I wasn't.
You were.
All right.
When you took the
this is becoming an argument here, but I know I was talking to Peter on a regular basis. So
no, the question really, go back to the question.
I don't need to defend myself.
Go back, Jeff. Go back to the question. We're going to be mandatory membership for 3 years for a private company for a profit.
Yes.
No one should vote for this ever.
Sit down. Yes.
And everybody's entitled to their opinion. So we're going to have town hall meeting.
Susan Levy in Parisian Lane. I have a problem with the concept of this being private and exclusive. There are many, many members in this club that are not equity members. They use our facility for a fraction of what we pay. Now, Can-Am and others, not just Can-Am, I think that part of this deal should be that if you're insisting on continuing equity membership or mandatory membership for 3 years, there should also be a part, and the other end of the deal should be that if there are people who are not inside members, equity members, they have X amount of time to become real members, and then it seems to me that that's one way to grow the membership and reduce the dues even further, because our dues would be lowered and theirs would be raised.
What I said earlier, Peter is still studying our premier membership, and the goal would be, once they understand the premier membership better, to levelize, which would bring our dues down and their dues up.
Yeah, because
he can't commit to that right now because he's not.
But to do this exclusive private deal, we're not really exclusive and private when you come down to it. And if you want an exclusive and private upscale club, then all of these outside members have to pay the same exact thing as we pay.
You're totally right. I would love that, but we're also have to face reality that in order to pay our budget and so Sean can make a profit, right now we need those people.
Okay, but I'm talking about in terms of mandatory membership.
Yeah, Peter said he'd work on that. That's the discussion we had. The board brought that up today too. Thank you. Oh, the line got longer over there.
Created a bunch of, John LaFave, I've been here 14 years.
Can't hear you.
John LaFave, Oakmont.
Thank you.
Been here 14 years. The way I understand the deal's put together, we're selling you the club for the debt, which will be covered by the sale of the land to GL Home. So it's costing you nothing.
Well, we'll see if GL or someone else ever pays.
It's costing you nothing.
I don't think that's right.
Based on the money we're getting from GL for the holes we're selling them, the value of the property here should be around $40–50 million.
If you want to bulldoze all of what you know as this club and not have a club,
just the holes,
it's possible you could make lots of money. Most of these meetings I go to, they have an appraisal for $50, $100, $200 million for their land. And we ask, how many people would like to bulldoze the club and never have a club here again and get a check? Nobody's name goes out.
We only have
So
a
it's kind of
guarantee for
irrelevant.
we only have a guarantee for
We're just
12 years.
inheriting your current situation and trying to make it better.
I
That's all.
understand, but after 10, 12 years, you can bulldoze the club and sell the land for $50 million.
Theoretically. Yes, theoretically.
My next question, are we selling you 100% of the club or 50%?
Yes, 100%.
So why are we staying equity partners with you?
Not.
Yes, you're forcing me to be an equity member for 3 years.
No.
I don't want to be a partner with you. If you're buying this club, buy the whole club. I want to be a customer. I don't want to be an owner anymore. I want to be a customer. You're in the business of running clubs and restaurants, hospitality? Prove it.
John, you've got the word wrong. We'll no longer be equity members, we'll be mandatory members.
I don't want to do that either. Why should I pay $22,000 to play golf here when the guy across the street's paying $7? The guy across the street's paying $7.
Can't do it overnight, that's all we're saying. We caused the problem, he's gonna try to fix it. He's quiet. Got about 6 more
I
people.
appreciate the quiet. For those of you who know me, I have a vocal problem. So I have a physical disability. I come to you from a different standpoint. My standpoint is one of the, I'm sorry, my name is Lois Tannenbaum, and I live at Milan 1. Okay, so when I purchased here about a year ago, give or take, I was promised a social membership. Obviously, with my disability, I can't play golf, I can't play tennis. So I waived the non-mandatory flag. After I purchased here, I was told there was no such thing as a social membership. It was a social tennis membership. And I'm charged all kinds of assessments for things that I could never participate in. So my question to you is also sort of an A-B. We were told at our last meeting that should we consider a sale to your corporation, it would be an immediate non-mandatory membership. That's what we were told. By here, we said that if we sell, we would go non-mandatory.
No one ever said
Did you not say that? All right, that was the principle of the sale.
I just got a word from my board, that was a rumor mill, but we officially never said that. It was a rumor mill.
Okay. I also stood at the
Dr.
microphone.
Tannenbaum, also in my letter that went out about the South POA, I said that if we do go into non-mandatory, this could hinder the sale of the club.
Yes, I did see that. The other part of this, I stood at this microphone, and as best as I could, I asked the question, if Concert Golf takes over, within levels of membership, would people who don't play golf or tennis or just social, did the board think that the Concert Golf would offer something for someone like me?
The
So
answer-
what I'm asking you, Peter, should this sale go through, what do you offer
for me.
Thanks for asking. So you're saying in a case like yours with a disability, having a special social or something without all the other requirements, is that possible? Yes, we've made accommodations like that in the past at other clubs. Yes.
Would it include fitness, like social
Well,
fitness?
now we're getting very specific. I might get 50 other people who have a very specific request.
So that
in
would be
general, we can
discussion.
work with you. Yes, we
Okay.
can work with you.
Thank you.
I can tell you, we have the framework for the social membership, and Peter has asked me at this point, not to put on any new memberships until they take over. But the answer is that the social membership would be a lower dues structure that we recommended to him, and it would include the gym. But you gotta give him a time to get in here.
Lastly.
No, I just have one question. I'm sorry. It's almost 6 o'clock, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my name is Ed Giller and I live in Oakmont. I want to support the argument that's been made by several people that in effect we're giving the club away for nothing. However, when we talk about mandatory membership, there's three elements. Those of us who are mandatory members because we were required to be so by our deeds or by our homeowners association, signed an agreement with the club, which in effect made us members for life, until such time as we sold our property or died. That same requirement in our home ownership requires us to sell that property to someone who then becomes quote, equity member of the country club. And third, upon the death of that member, likewise, his family must pick up a member with certain understandings and sell that property to someone who becomes a member. Your proposal to us is very unclear when you say we have to continue the existing mandatory membership for 3 years. I'd like to see that done away with, and I think that the risk should be upon you, Peter, because we're here, we're living here, we're paying dues, and we'll continue to pay dues. And if you provide the club, that I'm hoping you will, and I'm in favor of your doing so, then the risk on whether or not we continue our membership should not be required, but should be on the buyer. That's number one.
Let me answer part of that already. Peter's aware of that, and because the issue is so difficult, he's going to have to negotiate with the POA. It's not just a country club decision. And we figured it would take approximately 3 years to get this all done. That was one.
Well, the POA tomorrow could do away with the requirement that we have to sell to a member of the club. And likewise, could do away with the fact, and the club tomorrow could do away with the fact that a member who is a mandatory member by contract has the contract voided and they continue the contract at a month-to-month level, like they do with anybody else.
You just need some stability until I get this club membership.
Well, I think that's to tell me that I no longer have any equity interest in the club as an owner, but I no longer can sell my property to a non-news member, as far as I'm concerned, there's way too much wiggle room there. And I'm going to vote against this unless, very specifically, we can solve this problem with the POA, in a 2-hour sit-down. It's a simple problem to solve. There are only two matters involved. A, whether the membership has to be mandatory for existing members, and B, whether they have to be mandatory for new members. And I think that position has got to be dealt with before we go ahead.
Thank you.
Karen Gabriel, and I'm new to Oakmont. I purchased in October, and I purchased a social single membership, which was not listed on your thing. And if I included the assessment, the $187, and my $6,000 a year, it comes to right under $12,000. And what you showed me is mine is going to go up to $15,000. Also, I've read your Fountains Country Club bylaws, which are completely separate than the HOA or the SPOA. And in that contract, in the bylaws of the Fountains Country Club, it states that the only way I can give up my mandatory membership is if I have a hardship that's temporary, or if I sell to someone who will take over the mandatory. So my question to you, other than the dues category that was not listed, is if you purchase the Fountains Country Club, are you taking over the bylaws or are they going out the window?
Out the window.
Thank you.
So you've raised some good questions. If that short slide that showed some of the dues categories with the 20 or 30% savings we're trying to propose, if that didn't have all the categories that all of you are in, social single is on the list.
Right, but I paid 6,000, it's.
It's 12,000. It's going to be a substantial reduction for you.
Okay, the next, I just have one other thing. I hope if this goes through and you have to deal with Wells Fargo, that you do not take their accounting as true and honest. Because I just spent 10 years in a lawsuit with them.
Ooh.
And they settled in my favor. We're afraid to go to court. And it was because they made simple mistake after simple mistake, and they would not correct anything.
Well, we're going to get rid of that.
Please do not take whatever they say.
Thank you.
You owe them.
Got it. Got it. They'll be gone.
We'll pay them off in full. We know the number.
Jan Boyd from Versailles Court. This goes to the GL, possible deal or coming here. There's a rumor that, rumor, yes, I don't know if it's true. Originally you said that homes of worth valued at $400,000, $600,000 would be built by GL. Rumor that we're talking about lower cost housing that GL is planning to come in and build.
First of all, remember, we have not signed a new contract.
Okay,
That's the first thing I have to understand. So the original deal, 17 million, is the only contract we have signed. The proposal they're making is that they'll be building, instead of houses, townhouses, and they'll be around the $250,000.
That's a big difference.
Yes, there is.
Excuse
me, please. I'm just trying to break a rumor, that's a fact.
Concert Golf comes in, I mean, they could bring in any builder.
Concert Golf is asking us just to be included in the negotiation before we finish. Could you bring in another builder? That's going to be their option. It's going to be his option.
Where would you be getting these new members from if you, I mean, we have an older population here.
That's why he's got that gentleman in the back who's a membership person. I've spoken to him and they've got ideas.
They feel they have ideas. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jane Ellisop, and I live in the Atriums.
Quiet, please.
I've been here since '05. My parents lived here, so we've been here for many years. I've heard a lot of good things, Peter, about the company, and I know a lot of angry people here. So there's been a lot of years of people being very upset and worried. My question to you is, what happens at the end of the 12 years? What is, I mean, you're not only making, and I have no problem with making money on this, by the way, but you're not just making money on the country club. You're going to be, I'm assuming if I'm correct, you're going to be making money on the land at the end. So what happens? I'm 74. I'm 86, it's 12 years. What happens then to the place I live? Because that hasn't been mentioned. That was sort of the elephant in the room here.
No, it's a good question for all of you. You hear all these legal requirements of 12 years of this and 5 years of that. We're in the country club business. Go on our website. All the clubs we've ever gotten involved with are still there. We expect them to be there forever, unless a flood wipes them out, or there's a hurricane, or the sport of golf dies in America, or 300 of you get up and leave. And we try every trick we know, and there's nobody at the fountains. Well, at some point, if you invested $15 million, you'd say, I've got to have the right to do something if there's no one here anymore. But the simple answer to all this is, this option is if you want to keep this as a high-class country club forever. These are the people you do that with. That's all we do.
So at the end of 12 years, it is not automatic that you own the land?
We're going to have 400 or 500 members that we've got to make happy every day, and the food better be good, or we're going to hear about it. It just continues at all the clubs.
Okay, well, there have been rumors. So.
Yes, there's always rumors. Don't listen to fake news. Sir.
Good
afternoon, Richard Ward, Oakmont. I have a question. Number one, an appraisal, as far as I know, has never been done on highest and best use. Forget operating this as a country club or anything else.
The bank is done on appraisal.
No, I didn't ask about the bank. I'm asking about the club, our board, getting a highest and best use professional appraisal on the property. As far as I know, it has never been done. That's point one. The next question that I have, and that's for Concert Golf. I love your proposal. I think you guys are great. I think you can do wonderful things here. You said you had a $150 million fund. I see you have purchased 17 clubs. You've invested all of this money. How much of the $150 million is still left available liquid in order for you to take care of your obligations tomorrow? And one question. Yeah, and this is just a statement. As far as the mandatory membership goes, I find it very difficult how, as a member of a not-for-profit organization, how in fact mandatory membership can be transferred from that organization to a for-profit company, which I have no control over. I have control over the board because I can elect new board officers. I can vote on whether we do this or not. But once that goes away, so I think that personally, if I love the idea, I don't have a problem with being for 3 years, but I don't even see it being necessary. If you gave me a good membership and told me it was offered to me as a member in good standing, by the way, social member who has paid the same assessments as our friends, the golf membership do, but putting that aside, if I had a good membership number and you told me I could sign up for 3 years, you'd have my signature on it tomorrow. But thank you very much for listening.
Thanks. Yeah, first question he asked me was, do we have the capital to do this? We raised $150 million. We have another $100 million coming next year, probably in the summer. We have about $38 million left of our last investment round. So we have plenty of money to do this deal and the 3 or 4 other ones I'm working on right now. But the investor group keeps growing, which is a sign that the clubs have been successful. Now, as to this non-mandatory thing, I would ask all of you to consider what some folks have said. And I understand there's a lot of history and there's a lot of consternation, anger about the mandatory, non-mandatory. We try to come to clubs that the members are self-funding, big assessments, all of that, self-governing. And we try to make it better than it was. Are we the Tooth Fairy? No. We try to make it better than it was. Now, in each of the proposals you've heard, some people say, well, just get rid of mandatory entirely. Okay, you do that. You get rid of mandatory today. What's going to happen to Sean's cash flow today if you get rid of mandatory today? So all we're saying is, we have capital, we have some expertise, we're going to need to get to know all of you and how you use the club. And if we announce a policy before we've even gotten here and 100 people quit, well, that was stupid. We need some time. So if you ask us to equalize our dues rates with the premiers and the people that are paying full boat, give us some time. If you ask us to get rid of mandatory now, even though you'd be bankrupt immediately if you did that, we're not the Tooth Fairy. Give us a couple of years. We will add some members. We will make it non-mandatory, and this club will be way better off. Your homes will double in value. That's all we're asking for is we're trying to make this better for you than you currently have now. We're not trying to wave a magic wand and say, everyone eats for free 7 days a week, and it's $3,000 to be a member. We'd all be bankrupt if we tried that, right? We're just trying to make it better. That's what I would ask you to consider. Sir?
Ben Geller, Oakmont, from a little different slant. Indian Spring is right down the road from us. And you're going to own them, and you will own us. So we'll be at different levels of cost. What issues do you see in trying to get members for us at our cost versus members there?
Better golf course, better club, better facilities. I mean, we have this in a bunch of other areas where we operate, where one of them's got a Tom Fazio course that's higher ranked, and they charge a little more. The other one has a pool and tennis, and you get more of the families with the young kids. And the prices are different. The market will determine the pricing, right? And so right now, you're a member-owned club. You're setting the pricing, and you're all deciding how much you can afford in your next round of assessments. We deal with the market. What will people pay to be a member of Indian Spring? What will people pay to be a member of the Fountains once we make all these improvements? And if that's $16,000 or $14,000 or $12,000, it is what it is. $22,000 doesn't sound like the right number. It's been difficult.
Over the years, we've lost people to them.
Right.
It just, the market is pretty tough here.
But again, you're in this transaction. I want to make sure you all know what's happening. If you all get your arms around this over the next month, have some good discussions, what's happening is you're transferring the risk of all this onto us. So the burden you all feel of self-funding and trying to get another 100 members and trying to get the books to balance, that goes away entirely. Just think about your bill and what you get. And if it's going to be a better deal for you, it's probably a good thing for the club.
Hi, Philip Cantor. I would assume we probably don't have a cash flow to last us 60 to 90 days.
Correct.
All right, so I think that's something we all have to take into account. And I'd also assume that the last 6 to 8 years, we've been so well managed by our board, so we're really in good shape if we look to go forward privately. And selling a club for $45 million will definitely only take 25 days. But my question goes with the GL deal. With the rumor of $250,000 homes. Townhouses. Those townhouses, if I'm correct, are townhouses which are really one level above Section 8 homes, where government employees, upon approval of the county, all right, it's my voice, I don't need a microphone, where approval of the county, people can live there. Well, that's very little different than a level above such Section 8. So that's a thing that I think we all have to consider when we hear about this GL deal. And I think we all have to be very, very careful about that and about where our cash flow is. How long can we really survive? Like it or not, this man's in business to make money. We're really, as they say in French, on the balls of our ass.
I can't disagree with a lot of what you said. Quietly, I mean, I get cash flow reports almost daily, and they keep me up at night. But I also don't have the final numbers on the GL deal yet. It's something that's what we're going to talk about in town hall meetings, and we'll talk about the deal. But once again, nobody's signed. We have not signed the deal yet. It's what they're proposing, and then Peter will have a chance to look at it and negotiate also. Yeah, the other thing is, if we do this deal, quiet please, come on, as long as there's a few more people, gotta respect their time. If we do this deal, this is different. They will not be using our gate, they will not be using our facilities, they will pay for the wall. That's the way I'll put it.
Yes, Gene Strum, I live in Versailles. First of all, I want to thank you for looking at ways to saving our club. But we also live here, and I understand that the club currently owns the road work outside of the courts. And I just want to be assured that continued maintenance of the road works and the gates and everything is part of this deal.
Understand, through your homeowners, your dues, a piece of that goes, right now the management company is the FCO. We won't go through that all today, okay? But the management company is the FCO, and part of our homeowners association dues, they collect money for us, for roads, lights, gatehouses, and other whatever projects you think about. It's totally separated. I can tell you, today, I asked for the detailed report, they keep it separated by column.
I understand that, but the FCO has a contract with the...
Well, the contract at this point, depending on the arbitration, which we'll hear for any day now, literally, that's what I was told. The contract, that would move over to Concert.
I just want to be assured of that.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Larry, you want to say your name, please?
Larry Levine, Marseille Court. It was an impressive presentation that you gave us.
Quiet, please.
And when you mentioned that we would be members at 17 other country clubs across the country and so forth. What's to stop someone from Indian Springs paying their due structure to come over here and play in the
I can answer that one because that came up in my meeting with the people this morning. The answer is there'll be a limitation. Being able to be played at other clubs is not meant to be you belong to 2 country clubs. It's meant to be a travel club. So there'll be a restriction the amount of times they can play here.
And just one more thing, Sean's taken over and has done a terrific job, and he's shown a profit for the first time this last month. I myself would like to hear a little bit more about that initial Plan A.
Then come to the town
where you spent a minute on that, and when we heard about an hour's
Well,
worth
we had
of concert.
we had concert, we knew it needed time
Okay.
today. Come to
Thank
town
you.
meetings. Thank you.
Hi, Frances Meyer.
A few more minutes, guys. Try to hang in there.
I know I'm in the minority here because I live on the north side and you closed the north golf course. So for most people, it really is a selfish question for me, but once you close that north course, the land behind Tivoli Court and Estee looked like an abandoned area. It was never watered, it was never fertilized, it was never seeded. It really looked terrible. Now, GL owns that land because it's a part of the north course. Does that mean they can start building between Tivoli Court and Lake Worth Road? Can they build on that strip and then we'll have no land next to
I don't know which
Tivoli
hole you're
Court?
talking about exactly, but the answer is,
East of the gate.
Understand,
East of where the
understand
gate
whatever
is.
GL builds, their homes have to look at yours too, so they'd have to make it attractive. They'd have to make it.
But it's a part of the north course.
So that's land we haven't sold yet. That's owned by.
Will there be any restrictions on how close they can be to Deste Court and Tivoli Court as far as when they build?
I couldn't answer those directly right now, but there's always restrictions on how close you can build to property lines.
Okay.
There's always a buffer. Mel, want to state your name, please?
Mel Mintz from Marseille Court. First of all, I want to say I'm glad to see that almost everyone has showed tremendous respect to the folks being presented up here, including you, Jeff. Almost everyone showed respect, and particularly from former board members. I was glad to see that almost everyone did that. And I'm also glad that everyone has displayed the understanding, and communicated the understanding that we are under tremendous risk right now. And it's time to try to get rid of almost all of that risk we can. The question I have for you is, will a representative of Concert Golf be at these town hall meetings? I think it'd be very, very helpful.
No, full disclosure, I mean,
very helpful.
The answer is they can, but as well as I've gotten to know Concert and the contract and the LOI, you'd be surprised Sean and I could answer a lot of the questions, but I have no problem being have people here.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Arlene Messina from Versailles Court, and this may be a totally silly question.
Not silly questions.
You guys talk about increasing membership. If we sell everything over to you and you increase membership, how does that in turn help us?
Well, first of all, it helps us by making this a more vibrant country club, and I'll let them keep answering it.
I would say the same thing. I think everyone I've met, at least, don't remember all the names, would like a vibrant country club that some of you remember when things were more active and there were more people and more dining and all of that. We just want to bring that back. But you're right, financially speaking, you're not going to make a profit personally on there being more members here. Friendship, camaraderie, activities, events. That's the point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi,
Sir.
John McFade again.
Round two.
I was inspired.
Went back in line again, that's fine.
I was inspired. Concerning the mandatory membership, 3 years. If I decide to sell my home next year or the following year, do I continue to have to sell to somebody that will become?
Yeah, but they'll get that, they'll know that mandatory membership will be gone in 1 or 2 years, whatever the number is.
So that means the value of my home will still be depressed by 50%?
No, I don't think so,
for 2 more years.
because the difference is selling someone a home that there is no end to mandatory membership versus, hey, it's gone in 2 years. I think it's a big difference.
But you're still limiting your potential buyers by forcing somebody to join a
Well,
golf club,
as he said, this is part of the learning
which
process.
depresses the value of the property.
Okay, this is part of the learning process that they need to do for the fountains. If they can do it in less than 3 years, this is not in stone. I think he would. Understand, and when these negotiations started with both parties, we had no guarantee. They both wanted to maintain mandatory membership. So this is what the best I can get at this point. I tried.
Hi, Jay Horowitz, Oakmont. So, from what I understand, the deal will be your corporation buys the assets of this club. So then you own the 36 holes of golf you intend to keep for, I don't know, 5, 12, and less years.
We can lose forever.
Forever is a very long time, Jeff.
They'll keep it for a long time, that's what
But the other 18 holes of golf, 18 holes that we have, half of which we've sold to GL, which will net out your acquisition cost, will then leave you the opportunity to sell the second 9 holes of North and use that to fund your improvements, whatever you want to carry. My question is,
the answer to that. The other
Jeff,
nine-
I don't want your answer, I want his.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that
Jeff, I
not all
don't want
are-
your answer.
But I'm telling you they're not all sellable.
Fine. All right, yeah, but we have some unused land that's also out there that people had looked at years ago, right? Okay. So my question then is, so there's cash flow for you, and I can see your profit from that sale, right up front, or you hold on to it. It's an investment. You paid nothing for it, and 10 years from now, you could sell it, maybe worth a whole lot more as the housing economy improves, or GL wants to pay more to come there, or some other building. Question. My obligation to be a mandatory member is with the South POA, not with you. If I don't want to be a member of the club, and I own my house down south, and you said you'll never see me here again, I doubt if you can throw me out of my house, number one. You may keep me off the course, and you may keep me out of the club. But my question is, how are you going to enforce the 508 people whose contractual obligation is with the POA to pay you? And why should we pay you? Your risk to come in here, get all this land, get maybe $15 million of profit down the road for free. Why do I have to help you capitalize that? You have a hedge fund that's got $138 million left. You can have a call for $100 million on your investors. You can have another call whenever. Why do I have to pay you that? If I want to be a member, I'll pay you what you want me to pay you to play golf and come here to eat and everything else. But how can you enforce my obligation, which is with the POA and not with you? And why should I take your risk? That's my
Okay.
question.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Listen, I'm still learning about this mandatory, non-mandatory thing that you all have been dealing with for years. All I know is, as of today, that gentleman and many of you are required under a mandatory membership provision. So you could have a vote and negotiate with the POA to get rid of it tomorrow. You deal with the POA, you deal with the club, you deal with the bankruptcy of your club if you did that today. All I'm trying to say is, if we arrive here as your partner, there's a couple of pages of problems that somebody needs to sort out. Wells Fargo is owed $10 million. There's about $1.5 million of bills that need to be paid that this club doesn't have to pay them. Okay? There's millions of dollars of improvements that need to be made. And there's GL and other home builders who may or may not show up and write some checks for some land. But until they do it, and the money clears their account, what you have is some conversations with home builders, and none of us in this room knows how those are going to turn out. So let's just pretend that I haven't been talking to your club for the past 4 years, and that your board didn't do all this work, and I wasn't here. Your choices are, raise everyone's bill even higher, try to negotiate with several different home builders and hope they pay you in the next 2 or 3 years. Between now and when their check clears, I'm personally not certain how this club is going to survive. You need to raise several $1 million just to get to the GL Homes closing table. So think of us as an option to take that fact pattern and shift it to someone else who has a little more resources and experience than you. I'm not saying I can enforce something against your POA. You asked all very good questions. All I'm trying to do is say, as you sit here today, can I improve your fact pattern? Yes. We can phase out your mandatory membership, give us a little time, and then your home values will go up because the next person knows it won't be mandatory 3 years from now. That's better than today. Is that as good as someone paying you $100 million for your land and bringing in Tom Fazio to build 36 new homes? No, probably not as good as that. But that's a pipe dream. What you have today versus what we're proposing is trying to improve everyone's situation. That's all we can offer at this point.
I'm cutting off the questions between you two. This is getting late.
I just need to know, Bobby Weinstein, Marseille, how many of the 17 clubs that you now own are in communities where people live?
15 of the 17 are in gated communities.
In other words, just Mutton Town and what other club?
Blue Hill is not gated.
And all the others are?
I think all of them. I might be missing one other. But
All right, no, I feel that's very
Philmont
important.
is not gated. Correct. So it's 13 or 14.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Beverly Brosnan, I live in Versailles. It's a 32 apartment building. A 32 apartment building. 3/4 of those apartments are not members. What do you do with that?
Well, that's a Northern Court.
It is not.
Versailles?
Versailles is a Northern Court.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
You probably voted me off the board, so you didn't have mandatory membership.
They'll be bringing members in from the outside and from new sales. For you, up to.
Thank you. Norton Nebraska, I live in Oakmont. I have a question concerning the dues.
We live in Versailles.
Sean, you presented a budget to us for the year 2018. In that budget, you showed that our dues for a couple, not over 90, but a regular couple living here, playing golf as an equity member, would be $15,557. Now, you added to that the assessment for the capital improvements, $2,780, and another $4,000, about $3,870. That $3,870 is not part of the budget for 2018. It covers the loss of the previous year. So the basis that we should start with in this computation of our reduction should be the $15,557 because we owe the bank $2 million, which we're going to pay back by paying the assessment for last year. Is that true? Right. So don't consider that. You have to start with $15,557 and give us a 30% discount off of that. Don't fool with math with me. My next question is, would you honor the over 90 reduction as well?
Yes, yes, we already told that one.
Oh, then I'll pay next to nothing. That's
Come on, we want two more questions.
Karen Gabriel from Oakmont. Is there a contract between the POA and the FCC when they bought the land from the country club for the south area?
Anybody help me there on the board? I don't think so, right?
Because...
No, they do own the south gate and the land, the roads on the south. POA owns that.
Right, but I signed a contract with the HOA, the POA.
They're all different organizations.
Like your contract says mandatory will disappear, but the POA.
I said that's something Peter's gonna have to negotiate.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is the POA had to sign something with the SPOA. When they bought the land from the Fountains Country Club, had to sign a contract with you, and is that why the mandatory is in both areas?
Well, once again, I just went to my lawyers over here, and they don't believe we have a contract with the POA. They're separate agreements. They're separate agreements. They're not,
So you didn't have a contract with the SPOA when you sold the land to them?
we didn't sell the land to them. That was when the builder built over there, he gave the land, the POA was established when the south was done. I wasn't here then.
Okay,
So I
the
can't
other
answer-
question is.
No. At this point,
Peter
that's
keeps
it.
saying
That is it.
that there's no
Sorry.
assessments, but you've included the assessments.
That's the same question Norman
To
said.
the-
So I'll get to it.
because my dues, that says
Please.
dues is 6,000, not 12.
No, you're wrong.
My single social membership, I have my paperwork,
Okay, okay,
says $6,000.
good, okay.
Well,
Excuse me, when I say that, trying to get us out, I'm afraid your audience is getting smaller, but you may ask a question.
My name is Joel Rosenthal. I live in Marseille. I agree with that mandatory membership is outdated, costly, depresses property values, and should be abolished. But I'm not prepared to let the good, perfection interfere with the good. We need a deal. We need it 3 months ago, or maybe 3 years ago. I wasn't.
Well, I said 3 years ago you wouldn't make a deal because we had the court case with Bob.
But I do agree, I'm willing to make the sacrifice of committing, I'm not calling it mandatory membership because
3 years ago.
it's complicated, but I'm prepared to make a commitment for 1, 2, or 3 years. But what I'm not prepared to do is to accept, I believe Norman's numbers are much more accurate. You're looking at $22,000, which is covering past sins, which are already being paid once by the amount of money you're paying to the bank, and supposedly to replenish a capital account, which we are obligated under our loan agreements to have a certain amount of cash.
That is true.
I think that the commitment to join again to protect your downside is a legitimate request. I think that the suggested dues level is a little too aggressive, let me be generous.
I would
with that.
suggest that Peter and his team they've heard you, and he's gonna look at it, and I don't know if he can do anything, but he'll look at it.
And my personal feeling, having been an observer of the operations of the club for a relatively short period of time, is I would rather have your company operate it. Equity is a nice ethereal concept, but I'm looking 12 years. If I could sign up now and give you the 16.5, I'll take my 12 years of life, frankly, and I'll pay you up front if you can guarantee me that. I think your deal is well thought out, and with some tinkering and a few adjustments.
And that's why I said earlier, today was an information meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, not a decision meeting. We are still tinkering with the deal. I think Peter and I have come, myself and the board have come a long way over the last 4 months. Oh, you never know me finish, huh? Give me a minute. I want to thank you all. Come to the town hall meeting. Sean will get you information on it. Peter will have someone from his team here. Thank you, Peter, for coming here. You can beat it too bad. Thank you all. Cocktails.